Hi guys and welcome to my channel. With this video I'm starting a series of short cinematography breakdowns I'll be releasing regularly called The Lighting Game, where I'll be going through some shots from commercials and movies I like, breaking down the lighting, framing and some other ideas that we all can borrow and put in our cinematographer's toolkit. As a working filmmaker, I will give my best to reverse engineer the lighting setups and give some advices you might find useful in your shoots. But as always, I am glad to hear your opinions in the comment section below. If you like this content, consider subscribing. And now, let the lighting game begin. Today we will take a quick look at a couple of scenes from the Peaky Blinders Season 5, Episode 1. Starting with a meeting scene, and let's start with a wide shot, which gives us an overview of this gorgeous location. We have a nicely framed shot, these columns on the foreground help focus our attention on the table in the middle of the shot. It's a variation of frame within a frame composition. Really helps focusing our attention on an action here in the center, and also give depth and 3D dimensionality to a shot. As always with the Peaky Blinders overall look, we see a color contrast play between cooler lights and warmer lights, and lots of practicals everywhere in shot. Warm lights with shades, and highlights are not blown out on dimmers. So who would switch all the warm lamps on during the day in the real life? But it looks really good in movies. Our key light is coming through a window, and it's probably several bright HMI lights going through a diffusion, something like half-grid diffusion, for example, and then through a window, and this is our key light for the whole scene. Adding some haze, of course, to sell the look a bit better. So as you can see, there is no need to overcomplicate lighting in films. You just take a big, powerful soft source, some diffusion, and aside from multiple practicals, we just have this one big light, some haze, and that's the whole magic. Also notice that the window highlights are not blown out. We are still working within the dynamic range of the camera. Just one more thing here. The color of interior walls. They're all dark wood color, which really helps selling the look better. Just imagine the opposite for a moment. Bright colored walls, and the shot would not have looked nearly as good. Moving on for a two-shot, and the overall lighting scheme of course stays the same. We still have this key light for the gentleman coming through a window. But notice that we have much more fill light on his face now than we had in a wide shot. Take a look at his face. He had much more contrast on a wide shot than he has now, and it's a common practice. So what we do, we place a big white bounce board right side to bounce back some key light onto his face. The lady has this key light from a window as her backlight, and notice that the light on her bright hair is much softer, so we might want to use some diffusion on the way of this key light to her hair, or we might bring it a bit down using some nets. The bounce board we placed on the right side of the shot also works for the lady's face. Continue the coverage for the scene, and this is a dirty two shot. Dirty means there is another actor's shoulder out of focus on the foreground in the shot to add some depth. Now these two ladies are mainly lit by the window light, and shooting them from the front would have been very flat looking. So imagine the camera shooting from this direction. It will be very boring and front lit. But instead, we are shooting, the camera is located here. And now the lighting comes a bit from a side, which makes it look better. We have a nice lamp on the background, supporting the look by having some color contrast in shot. Turning to the other side, and now the key light, the light from a window, is the backlight for this gentleman. And we need to put up some bounce board from frame right to bounce back some light on the gentleman to fill in his face. Again, warm practical on the background, supporting the look, giving some color contrast. Now the portrait of the young lady, and we are obviously quite low with the camera for this shot, so below her eye line. And here's a little trick for better looking portraits. The fact that she turned her head just slightly into the light, into this light coming from a window, the key light, gives us a lot of opportunities for this shot. Now the softened window light comes from behind and slightly on an angle onto her face. And we use a white bounce board from the same side the light comes from to bounce some key light onto her face and extend it to her other cheek. So we have this key light from a window, and we helped with our reflector to wrap it over her face a bit. So the light travels further onto her other cheek. So we made the light smoother and softer. And no surprise, of course, warm practicals on the background. And now we see Tommy's cowboy shot. It's a bit wider than a common medium shot, and I don't think they modified a lot for this shot. We still have a key light coming through a window, but since a dark wood interior soaks all the light that comes from the window, all these walls, they soak a lot of light, we might get away with no negative feel. You still have a lot of contrast on his face, right? The only thing that catches my eye in this shot is a surprising amount of light level in this part of the shot, where it came from. So it might be a small light hidden behind this column, and it gives the light for this part of the shot to give better separation for his dark clothes and to separate it from the lighter background. Just one more shot from this scene where we are faced to look at the window where the key light comes from, and that's always tricky. What you don't want for the shots like this, you definitely don't want to have all the highlights on the window blown out. But here the light is very soft, and the matte glass helps a lot, and we significantly reduced the light level coming through a window for this particular shot. So now we have a nice edge light on the gentleman from this light, and we may utilize, of course, a bit of reflection from this side to lift up his shadows a bit. and also for the lady. And I think this scene is a good example for the quite common meeting scene we encounter a lot in movies in different variations. A lot to take away from it and put it in our toolkit. Now let's take a quick look at the campfire scene and start with establishing shot. It's a night exterior with a campfire in forest. And with super sensitive cameras nowadays, it's much easier to film scenes like this, but even if you shoot this scene wide open, for example, on a fast lens, for example, with t1.3 on a lens, you still need to provide some definition to the shadows, bring in some details in shadows, not just let them fall into a dark mess. And for this purpose, we use these fill lights coming from frame right, very soft fill light. It is supposed to be a moonlight, so we have it slightly bluish in color, contrasting with the warm color of the actual campfire. For the purposes of this, you can use something like big LED panel, for example, sky panel, coming through a lot of diffusion, softboxes, and rigged high above on an aerial lift or a crane to help spread the moonlight even better across the scene. We use some hazing. And of course the actual campfire itself. It's also nice to have this out of focus blurred reflection of the campfire in the foreground, kind of doubles the light. And let's also notice a nice frame here. We have a dark twig on the foreground, adding some depth to the shot, 3D dimensionality, and the talent itself sitting is framed between dark tree trunks. Moving on for a tighter shot, and now we clearly see this moonlight, slightly bluish feel, quite soft, it's coming a little bit from behind, so we have this horse silhouetted against a brighter light. Very nice. It's also revealing that the campfire here is more of a practical light, for sure it in its part to the lighting, but the talent itself is lit with a light source somewhere close to camera. So I would say again it's an LED panel with a soft box or something. It's quite soft. For me it's almost too soft on his face to be believable as a campfire light, but perfectly matches in color, which is super easy now with RGB and RGBW LEDs. And finally a close-up, framed with flames of fire. We have much less of a fill light now, the background is quite dark, but the talent itself is still lit with that LED light we saw previously, but slightly repositioned closer, moved a bit closer to the talent. And also notice these nice highlights in his eyes, make the eyes much more expressive. And that's all for today, guys. Hope you like these breakdowns. If so, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more useful and quality content. And if you have some thoughts and comments, leave them below. My name is Anthony. Thanks for watching.